All right, everybody, what is going on? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. We have made it to a Friday. It is the end of the week, and yesterday was the final day of the Seattle Seahawks minicamp. 3 days, just a quick little jaunt through some off-season work, and now we're probably going to be chilling until training camp starts in like 6 weeks. So things are definitely going to slow down a little bit. Not going to be a ton to talk about in terms of new stuff. So let's cherish the information we did get concerning the Seahawks yesterday and go through it and see what there is to learn, if anything. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So day 3 of Seahawks minicamp, the final day, and the second full day because, as we talked about yesterday, the second day of the minicamp ended up being heavily truncated and not really all that serious. All right, so let's go through some of the information we got. I'll just go through random things that the reporters passed along, mostly Corbin, but a couple other guys as well. So injury stuff, since that's often the most important stuff you get out of the off-season work. Elijah Arroyo was back at practice today. So he was someone that had sat out for most of the offseason so far, but he is back on the field looking good and ready to try to have that second year leap that he's going to need to have if he wants to see the field a lot because AJ Barner's there and Barner's not giving up that starting job. So you're going to have to earn those snaps as a second tight end on this offense. So that's good news. Irv Charles was also out there. I believe that's expected, but it's worth noting that Irv Charles has not played football in over a year's worth of action because he got hurt in 2024 when he was with the Jets, and he did not play football at all last year. So it is worth noting he seems like he's 100% healthy now, doing stuff. Look how big he is, by the way, compared to the other receivers. I think he's substantially, maybe not substantially, but noticeably bigger than Derek Young was. So it's going to be a tough competition on the back end for these receivers. There's really only one spot open, and there's like 4 guys who could get it. But Irv Charles, if he's back, that's probably more valuable than anything anybody can offer as a wide receiver. And one last injury note. This one's kind of interesting. This is from Josh Jones himself. Because yesterday we spent some time talking about the fact that it seemed like he might have been out of shape. There were some indications from McDonald that he wasn't happy with Jones's fitness. So Jones fires back. This is actually a reply to Dan Viennes, who was wondering what's going on with Josh Jones because a couple days ago, when Mike McDonald was asked about Bobby Hart, he seemed to indicate that Josh Jones was not ready to practice, and it was not an injury, it was a fitness thing. So Josh Jones had this to say: "I'm not out of shape, I'll tell you that." So pushing back on that narrative. We don't know what's going on exactly. Obviously, we can't know because we're just fans, and these teams are not going to air out all of their dirty laundry when they can avoid it. So don't really know what to fully make of this. But if you listen to the way Mike McDonald commented the other day about Josh Jones, it sounded like he was unhappy, not with the circumstance, but with the player. So don't really know what to make of it, but Jones says he's not out of shape. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the Prize Picks app, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about Team Picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. All right, so moving on to some stuff that actually happened on the field. I think the biggest things to take away from what happened on the actual football field yesterday had to do with the defense mostly dominating and the offense having some issues, which is mostly consistent with what we had last year and kind of what you would expect overall, I think, especially with a new, inexperienced offensive coordinator. But the exact makeup of the way in which things flowed, or things, I don't know if is float even a word? It must be a word, whatever. It is interesting because basically my understanding is that Sam Darnold and JSN looked good. They did their thing, but both backup quarterbacks got really, really pushed around yesterday. So this Corbin tweet kind of lays it out a little bit here. The defense utterly dominant in red zone drills for most of today. I think most is because Darnold did do fine, but you had, I believe, 2 interceptions by Drew Lock and 3 interceptions by Jalen Milroe. And that is one of the things that I've been hearing from the people at the VMAC over the last couple days. Milroe doesn't really look good. So terrible day yesterday for him. He threw a pick six. I think Drew Lock threw a pick six as well. D'Anthony Bell, Noah Igbenogany had the pick sixes. So there's some issues there. Now, in the case of Drew Lock, I'm not super worried about that because this is the last year of his deal, and we know he's a turnover guy anyway, and he doesn't really factor into the future of the Seahawks. Milroe's different. Now, one thing I want to say in complete fairness, I think we all knew that Milroe was going to take some time before he could actually be a real NFL quarterback, and we've only had a year. I think it's going to take at least another year before we can start to make any assessments of meaning, but he's not really looking better this offseason so far. If anything, kind of feels like he's looking worse. So I'm starting to think that we're not seeing the progression we were hoping for, which is kind of making me think that he'll just continue to be a guy who sits on the bench for this team. I don't think there's going to be much of a Milroe package. I don't think there's going to be much of a usage on him. And unless things turn around in training camp, we're going to at least have to be a little bit concerned that the development just isn't there for Milroe yet. So that's not great. But what is great would be the defense. So the defense dominated the red zone scrimmage, like I said earlier, according to Greg Bell here. And it sounds like there was a lot of good stuff there. And I think at this point of the offseason, especially on this team, you would expect the defense to be ahead of the offense. It's mostly the same players on defense. It's the same defensive scheme, same defensive coaches. And defenses generally start a little bit faster than offenses, I think, in the offseason. So next, and I mean, next to the fact that you also have a new OC who's never called plays before, I think those things matter. So that's good. I mean, there's always going to be that balancing act, right? If your defense looks really good, probably because your offense looked really bad. And hey, at the end of the day, it's mostly the backup quarterbacks who are responsible for that. So can't really be too upset. We got more Nick Emanwari working with the defensive linemen. So I mean, don't get me wrong, he blitzed plenty last year. He was used as a blitzer, but if he could be more effective as a blitzer this year, if he could get home on more of his opportunities, hey, what are we talking about here with Nick, man? How far could this go? Like, it's time to get really excited. This could end up being I know he's not really a safety, right? He's a bunch of different things. To call him a safety would be kind of selling him short, but he could be like a all-pro level player for this team very quickly. We got a little bit of Jadarian Price doing some zone read drill stuff, so looking pretty good, looking pretty smooth. And generally speaking, the news on Jadarian Price has been pretty positive. I think I mentioned this the other day, but there seems to be a sense that he's going to be a better receiving back than he was in college. And to me, that's kind of the missing piece. If Jadarian Price can be a good, valuable receiving back, that makes it a lot easier for him to be worth the first round pick. Because to me, using a first round pick, even in a bad draft on a running back who is just an early down back that can't catch, that's not something I'm ever really gonna get behind. But if he can be a good receiver, then you're talking about something that might be worth it. We also got a little bit on Robbie Ouzts. I know Nemhauser did a interview with Robbie Ouzts. There's a sense that he's going to do more for the Seahawks in 2026. There was even some talk that he might end up expanding his role a little bit as a receiver, which is interesting because that's something he barely ever did even in college. And apparently there was one play where he actually caught like a wheel route 40 yards down the field. And some people were saying, oh, are we going to end up using him like Kyle Juszczyk in San Francisco? Robbie Ouzts is like 40 pounds heavier than Juszczyk, I think. He's much bigger. So I don't think you could use him like Juszczyk. But if he actually becomes like a receiving threat out of the backfield, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a big part of the offense because there's only one ball and we got a lot of other mouths to feed, but could be fun, could be notable. And I mean, hey, if he can do it in a positive way, sure. And then we got some stuff happening kind of off the field, like stuff that happened last night that doesn't really have anything to do with minicamp. One interesting note here, Cassius Marsh signed a 1-day contract to retire as a Seahawk. Not really the guy I would have expected to sign a 1-day contract to retire with the team that drafted him. I remember Cassius Marsh, he was fun, but I'm a little bit surprised that he would actually do this, but it's pretty cool anyway. Cassius Marsh did have some nice moments as a Seahawk, some good moments. Fun player. Obviously, he was associated with kind of an era of Seattle football that was good, not great. He was not part of the Legion of Boom defense, but good enough player, and we accommodated him. Now, I know that there's going to be some people who say, like, how is it that Cassius Marsh signs the 1-day contract with the Seahawks, but Russell Wilson doesn't? I don't think KJ Wright did it either. So it's a little bit funky, but every player is going to be different with what they want to do and how they want to handle their retirement. So Cassius Marsh retires as a Seahawk. And we also got confirmation that there's going to be a joint practice with the Seahawks and Titans on we're going to play the Titans in a preseason game. So a couple days before that preseason game, there's going to be a joint practice. So those can be fun. Those are sometimes interesting. We had joint practices with the Titans 2 years ago. They've got Robert Saleh now, a coach that we are pretty familiar with from his time in San Francisco. So we did secure one opponent. And I mean, we clearly wanted to, so it's a good thing. And final thing before I get on out of here, we did get our Super Bowl rings last night, and they are very cool. I'm sure you guys have seen them by now, but they are about as elaborate and fancy and technologically sound as any Super Bowl rings you're going to find. I think they look awesome. I really like them. So this is a Witherspoon, but obviously every player gets their own. And my understanding is that Woolen was there yesterday to pick his up. I don't know about the other guys who have left, like Mafe and K9, but they'll certainly get them at some point because they were part of that team and they deserve it. All right, so that's pretty cool. I mean, that's definitely something I would be proud of as a player and be pretty happy to have. You can get your replicas of them for like 15 grand, I think, by the way, if that's something that you're into, which can't say that I am, but maybe somebody out there. And that's about it for today. I think that's basically all the Seahawks news at the moment. And like I said, other than the possibility of some contract extensions, maybe a free agent signing, I guess. That's becoming less and less likely as time goes by, though, I think. Gonna be quiet for 6 weeks, so we're gonna have to find other ways to discuss the Seahawks. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. I'm going to do at least one more video later today, but it's going to be baseball. So see you guys then or not. And yeah, mini camp over, training camp in like 6 weeks.